again, I'm married. I don't agree with my wife on 100% of anything. And the lesson that I have learned as a married man is this. There are some fights worth having, and there are others that are not worth having. I will tell you now, I do not care what color the drapes are anywhere in anybody's house. Let's have whatever color you want. I'm not having that fight because I don't care. I am going to have a fight if it involves how much we can or cannot pay for the house. That's a fight worth having. And it's the same thing in the political arena. Find those issues that are resonating with real people most of the time and talk about it. I don't know who our presidential nominee is going to be. This is a fascinating contest that's going on as we speak. And I will tell you that we've had, at this point, just about everybody on the show. So if you haven't listened, starting at 5 in the morning all the way up until 10 in the morning, Talk 1200, we got them all. Tomorrow, Congressman Ron Paul is going to be with us. We've had Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, and they've all been, which is wonderful. I still don't know if we've seen the nominee yet, to tell you the truth. I really don't know. I think we are a long way out. And this is the other message, if I can preach for just a second. Don't let the media types, don't let that Democrat machine convince you that we don't need a presidential election in 2012. Because despite what Barbara Walters and Joy Behar and the other crew on the Yak and Yenta show had to say, we really do need to have an election. I would also caution you, remember when George Bush, the elder, was president, and he had this tremendous victory in Kuwait, 2 years out from the election? Why, there was nobody that was going to run against him. There were no 18 Democrats that were willing to stand up and take him on. There was, however, one egomaniacal guy from Arkansas who wound up being a 2-term president. So bear that in mind. Don't concede a single seat. We need to contest every single state rep seat, every single state senate seat, every single city council, school committee. Don't let anything go by the wayside. You've got to go out there. That's my message for you. Look at your kids, look at your grandkids, understand you are really doing it for them, understand what your obligation is, and go out and get it done. We've got just a couple of minutes here. If anybody has any questions, happy to take a couple of questions. Yes, ma'am.
How do you feel about Donald Trump and all of the hoopla that's going on around him in terms of being distracting?
I got to tell you something. I think that Trump is fabulously entertaining. I really do. I found it amazing that Donald Trump was able to take credit not just for the birth certificate issue, but just yesterday in Nashua, New Hampshire, took credit for killing Osama bin Laden. Now, I got to tell you, I don't know the names of the 24 guys who were in SEAL Team 6. Pretty sure none of them on The Celebrity Apprentice. I think he's got every right in the world to run. I think he's going to make it interesting if he does run. I don't know if he really is running. But again, you just sort of have to give credit to a guy who stands up and says, look, I found a parade, I'm in front of it, I'm the Grand Marshal. The other thing with Trump that we need to remember is that Mr. Trump has been solidly on both sides of most issues over the years, and has been quite willing to give an awful lot of money to folks with D's next to their name. So I don't know what sort of a Republican he is, but again, it will be interesting, certainly, to see that play out. Anybody else?
Do you have a favorite horse in the race?
In the presidential race? Oh. No, not yet. I really don't. I'm sitting back. I'm happy to listen to all of them. I don't know. I know that here's what I do know. I know that we need to have somebody who is energetic, we need to have somebody who is passionate, and we better find somebody who really, really has, as Vince McMahon used to say, the testicular fortitude for this particular contest, because it's going to be a tough one. We also need to understand that social media is a vital component of this. And we understand now a couple of things. First of all, social media in the last presidential election, you can talk about how terrible Barack Obama is on all of the issues, and I would agree with you, but there has never been anyone that utilized social media the way he did in his campaign. It will be a textbook study in poli-sci classes for the next 100 years, I'm going to tell you. I was disturbed. We were living in North Carolina at the time, last presidential election, and in North Carolina we had something called early voting. It's a month worth of voting. But we still had people on our side who were going, you know, we're ready for election day. Well, I got news for you. You've got 28 election days. And it's not going to do much for you to show up November the 2nd because he won 3 weeks ago. So we need to be aware of this. We need to be out in front of this. And we also need to have somebody, I think, who says there's a clear difference between me and him. That was part of our problem the last time out, again, with John McCain. John McCain said, well, you know, Barack Obama would be a heck of a president. Really? Well, why do I need to vote for you? You know, if you're going to do exactly the same things, I don't need to vote for you. So we need to find somebody who has that consistent attitude that says we are different, and quite frankly, we're better. We have other folks out there. Herman Cain, I thought, in the presidential debate in South Carolina, did a tremendous job. He's a brilliant guy. There's still people who are talking about a friend of mine, Colonel Alan West from Florida. Let me tell you right now, I would follow Alan West into battle any day of the week. I don't know if he's going to run. I don't think he is. Part of that, I think, is because I know his wife, Angela, and I don't think she wants him running for president. And if Angela says no, I think Alan says no. But we have people like that within our parties, and we need to avail ourselves of it. Yes, sir.
The continuing resolution, when the House was passing the continuing resolution, they wanted lots of money cut from the budget. In the end, they knuckled under.
Yeah.
Now we got Mitch McConnell saying we're going to cut $2 trillion. And they might not raise the debt. What's the impact on Republicans?
You know, there is, I think there is a world of difference being on the inside of some of these discussions and battles and being on the outside. But here's the problem, is that if I wanted a bunch of left-wing politicians making policy for me, I would have voted for the Democrats and not the Republicans. And so I think the message to our side is, you went there with a mission, you went there with some stated goals, stick to them. You've got to stand up and you've got to be counted. Will you win every battle? Of course not. And again, those of us who live in the real world understand there's some battles that are worth fighting, some battles that are not worth fighting, but those that are worth fighting are also worth fighting courageously and valiantly, even if you lose them. And sometimes I wonder, as I look at some of our leadership, you know, I am a Republican. I mean, this is the other thing. I got to make as clear to you as is humanly possible. I am a Republican, and this is my team, and I want us to win, because I think we are not just a better party, but we are a party that values individuals, human beings, and quite frankly, has better ideas. So it is vital that we win it. But you've got to hold these people accountable. That's what you got to do.
So you're saying stick to the principles, even though you might lose the battle. Sure.
Listen, I think if you have a party that has no political beliefs, then you have a debating society. You know, you've got a club that gets together and has a couple of cocktails and talks about how screwed up the world is and then goes home.
It's a Massachusetts State Committee.
One last question, and then we get a roll. Yes, sir.
I haven't heard a whole lot of talk in any of the media about the fact that constitutionally there is no requirement to lift the debt ceiling. And that by not lifting the debt ceiling, that says you ain't spending any money, kids. Why hasn't the media looked at that?
What do you mean by the media?
Take Fox,
Uh-huh.
which usually is on the side of good.
Yeah.
I would look at channels 4, 5, and 7.
That I don't understand, but okay. Listen, you know what? I'm going to tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you what. Here, it goes back to the earlier lesson from Professor Katz. You ain't going to get a fair shake from the media. Get used to it, deal with it, and move along. Now, as to whether Fox did or not, I don't know. I'll bring it up. Sean Hannity's going to be with us tomorrow. I'll absolutely mention it to Sean and see if he knows something about it. I know that we have spoken an awful lot about it. One of the problems you face with some of these issues is that they are so complicated and there's so much money. Look, I have no idea what $1 trillion of anything looks like, right? And so people have a tendency when they hear these gigantic numbers to go back over here to something that they really get. That's our mission. Our mission is to make clear that it's not $1 trillion, which is just some number that's out there that nobody gets. It's about whether you can take your kids to Disney World. There you go. People get that. It's the fact that gasoline is $4 a gallon, and it means that people aren't getting jobs. It means that people are not going on vacation. It means that people who are losing their jobs are really totally out of luck because they can't find another one. It means that you have people who would love nothing more than to stay where they are in their home are forced to sell it or try to sell it. I think that's the other. They try to sell it because the jobs are gone. So those are the issues. We can talk about debt ceiling, we can explain it, and you got to make it simple. And I don't know if that's a nasty thing to say, but you got to make it simple.
But it should be, the analogy would be very simple.
Yeah.
MasterCard says you have a $50,000 limit.
Right.
You owe $49,999.
Right.
Until you ain't spending no more.
Right.
And
You know what?
common sense would say if you don't get this,
And that's it.
But
that's the analogy right there, and that's the one you have to make to friends and neighbors.
But from a constitutional standpoint,
Yeah.
they have to service the debt. We are one of the few nations that cannot repudiate the debt. So if they've got to come up with $400 billion a year, and there's no debt ceiling raised, that $400 billion is coming out of all this other crap that's being wasted on to pay the debt.
Not arguing with you.
Come on,
At all.
promote this.
I can tell you that the checkbook and the credit card analogy has been made numerous times. I've made it, I don't know how many times. I tell you $1 trillion, but we don't know what that is. Made it a boatload of times. And that really, all kidding aside, that's the way you have to present that. That's the way you have to present that. MasterCard said you got 50 grand on your charge card, you're at $49,999, you're done. That's it. You're done. You certainly can't invent it yourself. You know, I mean, that's what they're trying to do in Washington. So again, credit card is the perfect comparison. There are some people, by the way, I talk about some of them, I talk with many of them on the air. Alan West and Steve King, Sue Myrick, tomorrow Mick Mulvaney, who's a congressman out of South Carolina, is going to be with us. They're all saying exactly the same thing you are. Jim DeMint from the Senate is a regular, same sort of thing. So that is the way that you do that. And you just, I think you've got to keep it simple and relatable. People get what the credit limit is. They don't understand trillions of dollars in the debt ceiling. I thank you so much for your time.